We sat down with the founder of the biggest radio station in the country to build a solution that distributes royalties of AI-generated music. Herbert, you've been in radio forever.
Forever, yes.
You're the director of MediaHuis Radio,
Yes.
which actually has a reach of around 4 million
A week,
listeners a week, and it's covering different radio outlets.
Yes.
What is the challenge that you brought to us today?
Well, the challenge is, first of all, I am the managing director. Always MediaHuis Radio has a two-persons management. I'm one of them. Always, even before we were acquired by MediaHuis, the company, but then we only did 100% on Alan Slam, was called Radio Corp. And this is the company that I founded in 2006. Always we had two managing directors, a joint management, because it's very important to know what you can do. It's even more important to know what you're not good at. And for that you need a second person, and this always worked very well for me. But yes, I'm one of the two managers, directors of MediaHuis Radio. Now the challenge that I brought here today with you guys is music royalties and AI. And there are several ways to look at this. We pay a percentage of protected music. We have, of course, a percentage of protected music that we pay to the music royalties organizations. And in the past, it was very, very obvious. Like, of course, it was a human composer. Of course, there were human performers, no doubt about it. And what, by all means, is very necessary is that both composers and performers need to get paid their fair share by radio stations, supermarkets, hospitals, whatever, wherever they use music, a fair share need to be paid. But now it's all getting blurred because of AI, because of course there's music that is 100% AI. There is already a verdict here in the Netherlands from a restaurant in the place of Ede that said, well, I'm only playing AI music. And the performance rights organizations in the Netherlands sued this restaurant and lost because, well, yes, you hear music. And yes, they have the monopoly to collect music, but it's not music that actually was performed. It was created by AI. But also more and more, whether you use music, software, or whatever, a lot of music, even if it's not AI, these days is performed by computers, by software. Are you then a performer, and are the users who use that music, are they still entitled to pay the performer? Same with composers. I saw a quote from Björn Ulvaeus from ABBA recently, you know, the composer of legendary ABBA songs. And he said, well, you know, composition should be done by human people, but AI can be a really helpful tool. And I thought, like, hey, hold on, wait a minute. The difference between a massive hit all over the world or a complete failure is very often just a very tiny little bit in a song, a certain sound or a certain word or a certain lyric or, you know, or a certain hook. A very small aspect of a song can make the difference between the song being a total failure or liked by, you know, the whole world. And if that's generated, that simple part, that little part, if that's generated by AI, well, you know, and AI made sure that this has become a very successful song, are you then still the creator? And if you are the creator, like the collecting societies, performing rights and composers' rights, well, they are collecting money, but they're collecting money from all radio, all television, all restaurants or whatever. So if you have something created by AI that made a difference between being successful or not, then AI has been very, first of all, very lucky to you. if you got that hook, but it was created by AI, not by you, and you're going to make tons of millions, tons of money, millions of money, tons of money, whatever, but you're going to make tons of money on something that AI has created for you. Is this the right approach? Should we not rethink all composition rights, all performers' rights? Should we not completely overhaul the system now that this is coming to us? That's basically what keeps me awake at night.
I mean, there's no way around AI, and we better discuss these topics so that we can find good solutions for it. And it's obviously also not a topic that we can solve overnight.
No.
Because we can get very philosophical about it. If we now think about the solution that we're gonna be starting out based on this challenge in a few minutes, where do you see the biggest potentials, and who actually benefits most if we would come up with a solution around AI detection?
Well, first of all,
how would it create value and to whom?
Yes. Well, first of all, let me explain that if you are in the radio business, and still radio is very, very strong. Like a lot of people are like, radio is dead and stuff like, no, it's not. No. And also radio is developing also digitally. About, well, more than 50% of the audience is already listening digitally, and about 33% of the audience on average of a radio station is currently listening online. So we are also competing online with other online platforms because people are online listening to us. But radio stations, they pay a percentage of the airtime devoted to copyrighted music, whether it's phonograms, like, performers' rights are judged based on phonograms, like commercially released phonograms. Phonogram is the term for actually an audio recording. The legal word for that is phonogram. So it's not a kind of an old device from 1910 or something. It's like it's a legal term. And of course also composers' rights. What the problem is that also a lot of radio stations all over Europe, especially the smaller ones, it's the same with music. Like, there are tons of artists, there are also many radio stations, but only the top ones, those ones make the real money, and the others still have to pay, for their transmitter sites. They have to pay the same percentage of their turnover for copyrighted music, of their turnover. But of course, if you have the same costs as the big stations, but you're not a big station, that really cuts down on your budget. So
at the end of the day, it's mainly about being able to decide how royalties are being distributed.
Yes.
And we don't have to solve today in the conversation to whom a split of AI-generated contribution is being distributed at the end of the day. That's something that we can and should figure out and find a solution for. But for now, it's important to focus on how we can actually detect AI. And then in the next step, we can think about, with smart people in the industry, lawyers, so on and so forth, what we're actually going to do with that portion of the distribution that is allocated to AI.
Yes.
Now for the AI detection part, I will start a timer so that we can go into our 30 minutes. Hazam is going to be doing the same for his development part. And we're going to start it now. And if we start thinking about a solution around AI detection, for me, the first thing that would be interesting to understand is how your existing flow looks like, so that we can understand how we can make sure that it's integrated in the flow. So let's assume, or let's take your example of a radio station. you sort of come up with at the end of the day, there's an existing workflow that you use to essentially distribute or sort of indicate airtime. And it would be great if you could elaborate a bit on this, how this looks like.
How you're talking about how basically a radio station is being programmed. Yes. Well, first of all, if you have, whether it's governmental, public broadcasting or commercial broadcasting, the fact that you're a managing director doesn't say that much, because there are many laws applicable to broadcasting. For example, you can direct the radio station into a certain area, targeting a certain audience, but the people who execute it, the producers, presenters, they are the ones by law, this is an editorial statute it's called, by law they are required to make independent decisions on what they're going to do, what they're going to say, in order to prevent political or commercial influence from even its own management. So basically you can say, well, you should aim at, as a management, you can say you can aim at this audience, we want to reach this audience, and it should have that market share and set those goals. But the people who execute it, they have the freedom, the independence to actually do it the way they want to do. And of course, if the ratings are bad, you have conversations with them and like, hey, it needs to be improved because otherwise we cannot pay the bills. But this speaks for itself. Also, there's not an editorial statute when it comes to music, but I personally strongly believe that whoever programs the music should also be totally independent. Also here, this person who creates the playlist, that's luckily still a natural person with our radio stations, so it's curated by a natural person. But very important is also here independence, because we are overwhelmed with music that radio stations get. Even in my personal inbox, although I'm not a music director, I'm getting like 15, 20 songs a day. Like, hey, can you please play this on the radio? And like hundreds and hundreds of songs are coming in each week from all kinds of sources. And also the major labels who still send their pluggers to us. So we are picking that music, and the music directors are picking that music in such a way that they feel like if I make this choice, it might either keep our listeners or it may actually increase time spent listening or even new listeners. So they create a playlist, and that combination, and of course very important is also marketing, that combination basically makes the radio station on top of good distribution.
And then at the end of the day, the playlists are curated.
Yes.
And you have a process in place how you actually submit this to the collecting society. So my question was more so in regards to, let's say you have a radio station 24 hours, and out of these 24 hours, 18 hours are human created.
Yeah.
And then we identify that 6 hours are AI created. So in that process, obviously a big part of the solution should be focused on trust. I feel that is a big topic on how we can actually be sure that whatever we indicate as AI is actually AI generated. So in terms of the solution of AI detection, it's crucial to understand at which point in the process do we actually plug in an AI detector, because it could either be done by sort of listening as a listener to your radio station, but it could also be earlier in the process of creating a track, a title. In that process, there could be several options where we could plug in an AI detector which sort of scans files to truly understand where AI is actually being used. Because I feel like if we would enter that process, Hazam, at a point where we just listen to a song that is being streamed, for example, on a radio station, I feel like we have less opportunity to actually work with data or metadata that would help us to understand how AI is being used. Because obviously, if we only start listening or trying to detect AI at the outcome, it's way harder than if we would have an understanding from the beginning. You mentioned an example earlier. I think it was David. Who was it?
Martin Garrix.
Martin Garrix.
Yes.
Martin Garrix.
Well, I don't
think. So if we would understand earlier in the process how he actually created it, and you mentioned a video in the conversation
TikTok that he made. Yes.
TikTok. In that case, it's obviously way easier for us to understand how AI is being leveraged. And therefore, my question to you, Hazam, where do you see the biggest potential to actually introduce an AI detection tool? Because there's obviously software out there that you use for creating music, and it might be relevant to explore how we can, at this point, already find a way to start the AI detection.
Yes.
Or it could also be the case that by the file that you export, that in the metadata, there's some information around it. So I leave the word to you at this point.
I believe it could go multiple ways. It could be implemented with streaming platforms that, for example, when someone is uploading a new track, they can flag it even for the user, so the user is knowing what he's consuming. It could be implemented with production software. They can also contribute to this, and this is a big thing. I think I see this as like government level thing where there is a lot of people getting involved. It could be, like I said, on different aspects of the chain, like you said, from the beginning, from the building to the consuming. Also, for example, for radio, TV themselves, they can flag this. I think this is going to be a big thing that even like composers themselves, it could be, for example, societies, collection societies claiming the percentage that is produced. Let's say a song is produced 40% by AI. This could be later on used by the government to support other artists to create. So the AI itself is a collection of fund that goes into supporting other artists. So I see this as multifaceted.
That part, as we mentioned earlier, is a separate conversation on how we're going to deal with whatever we allocate to AI, whether it's a fund that goes and is being distributed among artists, for example, by collecting societies. But that's a separate conversation where we would need other people involved. For now, it's important for me to understand at what point we can create actually the entry for such an AI detector. And for me, the solution is most likely not by just listening to the output, but rather exploring somewhere in this process of creating a particular track where AI is being used.
By the way, let me clarify that I did not say that Martin Garrix is using AI.
Yeah.
What I saw on a TikTok video, like one of his biggest hits, he was explaining the process where he was programming music software.
Yeah.
So he was still by all means the composer, the creator, but all the instruments came out of music software that he programmed. And I'm like, hey, hold on a minute. So you are claiming performers' rights, and we have to pay a lot of performers' rights, but you're a brilliant composer, because that's what he is in his field. You're also a brilliant computer programmer, especially with music software, but it's the software that actually is playing the songs, that creates the sound. It's not you. So are you then the performer, despite the fact that you have claimed the performing royalties? So I don't think that was AI. But the song was fully made of computer software.
Yeah. So again, since we have 19 minutes left, we clearly have to differentiate here between a philosophical discussion, and I'd love to dive deeper into it.
I have the time. We can last. We can use this for 5 hours or so.
A software solution and the tech part of things.
Yes.
Hazam, back to you. In this process of creating music, where do you see the biggest potential of starting the AI detection? Because as I mentioned, for me personally, I don't think it's the best solution to only start trying to detect AI with the final outcome. Because if I now would stream a song on Spotify, to my understanding, there's very limited potential to understand whether this is AI created. There might be things, if we talk to a music analyst, I was talking to one of my friends, he's an indie artist, and he was like, yeah, Julian, you can tell in some parts that this is not created by human, but it becomes increasingly harder. So for me, that's not the most accurate thing to do. I would rather focus on the process of creating a track and seeing at what point we can actually integrate such a tool, or which information we can leverage in terms of metadata that allows us to get a better understanding or a more comprehensive or accurate analysis of where AI was being used.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big topic because I see that it needs a lot of cooperation from all the software companies, the production software, the AI software. And that's why I see it really has to be some sort of policy or law that oblige people to be cooperative.
And even then, that will not happen because you have to be honest. And there are a lot of cheaters, especially when there's money to be made.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I don't see how it works with radio in any case when it comes to the collection societies, is that they fingerprint. So we don't have to deliver them the playlists. That's automatically detected, like basically, Shazam XXL, so to say, by professional software. The collecting societies, they get playlists from our stations, independently recorded, where they exactly can see at what second a certain song has started and what second it stopped before the next one came. And this, in principle, is their basis for the payments to the artists and to the labels of the money they collected. Mm-hmm. So it's all also outside our hands. We cannot influence that. But of course, if someone created something with AI, and which now happens a lot, by the way, I recently read that, for example, Deezer, I believe 70,000 tracks a day that are uploaded on Deezer are AI, 20,000 are genuine. Mm-hmm. Or believed to be genuine. Maybe even they're also partial AI, but 70,000 are purely AI every single day. So there's just tremendous tsunami of music coming our way that we no longer can trust as being performed or composed by actual people.
I'm still, in terms of the solution, I'm still wondering where's the best potential of starting this AI detection.
Well, I don't have, it's a philosophical topic.
No, that's not a philosophical topic. That's a very technical topic.
Yeah, but like I'm not an engineer.
That's why I'm talking to Hazam here.
Okay.
Yeah, to be fair, I also struggle to imagine how we implement it, but the important part is that we have to make the case that there is a fair way to do this. And even if we do try to do the detection at the end, basically when already something is published, even if it's not, I don't know, even 50% accurate or something, we are making the case that this is the way royalties should be distributed. It's more fair. We can use it in a different way. But definitely, if we have the case that we can have it in the start of the chain, in the composing phase, that would definitely have more impact.
So that's a bit ironic. At the same time, in my opinion, to come up with a good solution, that's the key challenge to tackle. And the key question to understand, where do we start in this whole music creation process to actually identify AI? So ironically, let's ask AI the question where AI thinks that it's a good point in time and the biggest potential in this whole value creation of producing a track to integrate an AI detector. So Hazam quickly asked AI of where in the value creation process of creating a music track, we should dive deeper into exploring where we can integrate such an AI detector.
But then the question is which AI, because my experience is that you can get different outcomes.
Obviously, there's different
whether you
outcomes.
ask DeepSeek, Perplexity,
Obviously, there's different outcomes.
You
So now it's just important that we get some inspiration to understand or to get further insights on where to start.
So waiting for AI to answer.
Yeah. So what is AI suggesting?
Most impactful at the distribution/registration stage.
Okay.
Why? Because it catches AI content before it enters royalty systems. Distributors are bottlenecks. All music passes through them. Can flag tracks for disclosure before they hit Spotify or Apple streaming services. Prevents downstream payment rights complications.
I'm just wondering at this stage, how do you actually detect AI? Because this is the registration part, as far as I understand.
Yeah, next thing it says is what to detect: AI-generated vocals, synth voices, voice clones, AI compositions, melody, chord patterns. So there isn't nothing super specific.
And early in that process? Yeah. Early in the process, because obviously every track has metadata and so on and so forth. So I'm assuming that this is something that can be done at a level of the tools that are actually being used to create a particular track.
Yeah, second option here, it says that the streaming platforms, basically they will have to scan on upload and then tag it in the metadata that this is AI. But yeah, the problem is like the tools that you see now that generate AI music easily, they're their own thing. They don't rely on any production software. So even if you get cooperation from these production softwares, it's still hard to detect this. That's why it's really a tough one.
So what I got in here is at a level, for example, where we talk about tools like Logic, Ableton, FL Studio and so on, that we detect AI-generated stamps, loops, lyrics and so on, and tag each element with a contribution origin, whether it's a human AI model, a data set, and then we have this export layer for pre-mastering, and then we have a suggestion of running an AI attribution scan before a final bounce. So at this level, that's where I initially also had the feeling, and I still do see the biggest potential at this level to understand where AI is being used, because that's where music is being created and where also the actual contribution matters in that early process.
Yeah, but still,
obviously, not obviously, but at the mastering level, we no longer talk about contribution, right? Or at least not to an extent where we would say like that's a composer and that's an performer.
Well, what I'm mostly thinking is that still it depends then on 100% honesty. But there are also a lot of crooks out there who will disguise that they have been using AI, and then it's still being uploaded and they collect royalties.
I mean, for us, at this point, it would not be about honesty, but about facts. How can we actually integrate into software that is being used where there's AI functionality, for example, and at the end of the day, we just have to get an understanding, did they use an AI feature or not? And if they did so, at this point, we sort of have to tag these elements. And we know like, okay, these stamps, they are sort of AI enhanced or AI generated, and therefore, this is not something that we can contribute.
Well, that would be a wonderful situation
Yeah.
if that could be achieved.
Okay, so then we have 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Let's try to focus on this very particular solution, which we would start integrating into the main software solution around Logic, Ableton, and FL Studio, because this is the source of truth.
Yes.
In my opinion, the later we integrate in the value chain, the less accurate it gets.
Yes.
And the harder it gets to understand whether this is coming from AI or a human being. So I would focus on these tools that make 80% of the market, and this is certainly Logic, Ableton, and FL Studio. If we manage to integrate a solution only in these three tools, we already cover a lot.
Yes, and that would completely disrupt the current payment system when it comes to royalties, because the whole, now the situation is, and if we're not talking about radio, we're still talking about restaurants. There are many restaurants that have music, supermarkets, shops, bike stores, wherever music is being used. Companies now either have a license to play music or not. So it's basically black and white. Like, if you play music, even if it's 1 hour a day, you need to pay. You need to pay to the collecting societies. If you don't play music at all, never ever, only then you don't need to pay. But you cannot say, well, until recently, it was very simple. Everything was composed by a human, everything was performed by a human, right? Or by several human people. Now, with AI, or even like in the example of Martin Garrix with programming software, which is not AI, but still it's not a performance, the way I see it. Even in that situation, you have big chunks of the music that you can listen to it, but it's not being performed. So do you then, as a restaurant owner, or for restaurant owners, music payments are a lot of money, especially if your restaurant is struggling. Do you still, because of the fact that the musicians, the labels, that they're using AI parts, would you still have to pay the full price, while the product, which by law you are entitled to pay the composer and the performer, is not 100% composed anymore, is not 100% performed anymore, right? So even outside the scope of radio broadcasting and television broadcasting, hundreds of millions of euros are collected from small restaurants or restaurant chains or supermarkets or whatever, that no longer get the product that they pay for, which means compositions for the composers, made by composers, and performers who, like real human people who perform the music. They are using technical tools like AI or programming software in order to create sounds that are not performed. So it is an interesting solution. It would be an interesting solution if it can be detected how much percentage, what part of a song actually has not been performed by a human, but you can still hear the music.
Yeah. Hazam, a question at this point, with 5 minutes on the clock. Have you been thinking about the solution? What type of solution is it at the moment as it stands?
It's still in the building, but the part that I'm trying to focus on is what we said, a plugin that could be implemented in the production software that is, like you said, already...
We would position it as a plugin.
Yeah, that's one part of it. Okay. And actually, I want to just comment on something you said earlier about the honor system, that people would still not honor this. It's still fine, because we can compare this to copyrights. Like back in the day, people didn't have copyrights, and then now that we have copyrights implemented, people still can pirate, but at least we can control a big margin of the... Yeah.
I like the way of positioning it as a plugin. Yeah. let's talk about, for the remaining time, how we can actually achieve a go-to-market. What would be an incentive for the tools that we've been just talking about to, at the end of the day, integrate, or at least allow the integration of such a plugin? And also for me as an artist or a composer, let's say I'm a composer, what would be for me the incentive to use this plugin? Because I don't necessarily have a benefit from using this plugin, because the only benefit is, or the main benefit, the obvious benefit is, well, now you know that 25% of this track was not created by me solely, but there was AI that was being used. So that's a key challenge, that at the end of the day, we have to create the right incentives for such a plugin, because there's no obvious benefit of using this plugin.
No. No. I am the commercial user of this music. I am paying you for your product. It's my right to know whether, since I have to pay the composer and I have to pay the performer. And that's the law. And
so at the end of the day, you see the only realistic scenario that was in my head.
Yes.
By making it a regulation or a law.
Maybe not a law, but I can imagine that if we knock on the door of the collecting societies and say, well, hey, you now have this software, you need to implement it.
Yeah.
Like what the collecting societies do with us, and they have the full right to do that, is they want our accountant statements. So what income did you have? They require that from an accountant. Like there should be a registered accountant that puts a stamp on our numbers, and we have to give it to the collecting societies. In this particular case, for the same reason as they require us to give them our accounting numbers with a stamp from the accountant, we should be able to say, well, collecting societies, you now have this software, it's recently in the market. We oblige you to use it and report to us actually not only what percentage of music we have been playing, because that's what they do. Like every year I get from the music composers organizations, I get the percentage of total airtime in a year devoted to music on our stations. Now, and in this particular case, the the collecting society simply can come to me and say, well, you've been playing like 96, 97% of music, but this percentage of it was really, really performed and composed. And this percentage has been created by AI. And so we just deduct that from the total percentage of airtime that you devoted to music.
And there's another challenge around the collecting societies and the actual members of them, because the way we've been thinking about this plugin now is a solution for their members and not on a collecting society level. So we have to find a way to we talked about incentive is hard, so it probably has to come through a regulation to get the members, in that sense, composers, artists, to actually use.
Actually, I have a thought about this. Okay, it comes with a timer. Actually, it does. Yeah, it doesn't have to start as a policy or something that you're forcing people to use. It could be as a label. That is, for example, when you go buy stuff, like the fair trade label, people with conscience would go for it because they know what's behind it. Yeah. We can have this label to basically encourage people.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now it's time to present the solution.
All right.
That was a tough one. Super interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. And as I mentioned throughout this conversation, it's a whole another question on a philosophical level, how we deal with that part that is being generated by AI. Because you could also say, well, actually, there's been software engineers like Hazam, they've been pouring their hearts and souls into building these AI features. So you could also argue that actually software engineers should get a fair share of that particular track, title.
Yeah, it's just that they sold the software engineer. It's the same like, well, if let's say Oasis is using a certain guitar on their tour, to pay the guitar manufacturer, I think that goes a bit too far, because the software is just out in the market and you can buy it. And it's still, the natural person to create with it. Like, it's the same with radio. Like, everybody has the same studio, but our people are the best using it. So,
Hazam.
Yeah, because the idea is basically the plugin that would be in the software production software. So there isn't much to see in the web app.
Okay, good.
So the landing page is basically describing what we talked about, that there's going to be a plugin that you can have it installed in all the production software out there, which would control, like we said, I don't know, 60-70% of the market already. So it's basically giving some sort of idea on the different features. It's tracking every note from creation to royalty. I think that's a good slogan. So the two different main features is the plugin itself, and then in a way exporting a report at the end, kind of as a certificate or a label, what we call it. So yeah, just go here, let's log into the dashboard. So yeah, we see here different plugins that you have: Connected, Logic, Ableton, FL Studio. You can run a scan on something that you see the percentage of the different parts of it, what's AI, what's human. Also here, a different section where...
So what would you, if you go back, what would you actually provide as an input?
This would be already connected to a production software. Because this here basically just for a visualization to see the results in a way. But I think the plugin itself could be standing by its own.
So as you can see here, for example, the drum loops are from an AI source.
So yeah, this is a proof of concept what it would be looking like. Different parts of it, like the vocals, different stems, and the second section would be exporting a layer at the end as a certificate or a report. You see the different parts of it, composition,
so lyrics. I mean, this in itself is not a proof of concept, it rather is the prototype. A proof of concept, if we talk about next steps, would be to approach, for example, Ableton, and create a plugin that we can integrate into Ableton, and then we would have a proof of concept if we would run these scans, for example, through my friend's projects for his recent tracks, and would identify what is being created with AI and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think there's already we can create a community plugin for these different things, and if there's enough big of a movement pushing this plugin and people really believing in this, I think it could pick up really quickly. Like I see it already.
I do
because you could see it, you could flip it and actually market it from the other perspective. You could approach artists and composers and be like, hey, run the scan, as you mentioned, like a stamp for approval that this is actually not AI generated.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it could be something that an artist can be proud of.
Yes. That also already would be very helpful.
So that we flip that coin. Yeah.
Like here
switch the perspective.
Here you have the proof. Like here you have a stamp that there's no AI involved. Neither in the composition, neither in the composition is difficult because if AI is composing something and you just write it down and you just play it after that, then it's very difficult to
that
prove
way,
that. But
that way we flip also the communication, and it's not coming from, let's say, this is a regulation and you have to use it, otherwise you can't get the royalties.
no, we can say
it's
like
rather about be
right.
proud of what you created, and you can
yeah, but a radio station could say we only play you if you guarantee, even in writing, that you haven't used AI.
Yeah, I mean AI per se, it not to understand us wrong. There's so much potential for AI in the music industry, and I can see many scenarios and ways how AI is actually helping in that creative process. I also see it myself with a background in user interface and user experience design, and the way of coming up with prototypes like this. There's great benefits in AI. So AI per se is not a bad thing. It's quite the opposite if we leverage it right and find solutions like this.
Yeah, definitely. I also
think through how we can actually make it beneficial to us.
Yes, I already did see here and there some artists, small artists, who post videos complaining that they got kicked out of Spotify because their music was AI flagged, while they argue that it was not. So of course I don't have an opinion on that, but that also would be, if this would work, you also would have this like
a use
such
case. To prove to Spotify, hey, actually there's nothing about it.
It's like a sort of new version of a lie detector. It looks like.
Yeah, see, though, like this is a perfect example. Even though it's not perfect, they still use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's better than nothing. And it's not just better than nothing. If we invest more time in it, I'm confident that we can create something that has a high accuracy. And if we manage to tackle it at the right point in time of the value creation, then there's massive potential.
Well, I would say that big users like me, if such a product would be available, we definitely would knock on the door of the collecting agencies and say, hey guys, you need to use this because you want to prove from us that, which of course we are obliged to do and that we do, because once again, there's no discussion about paying an artist, paying a composer their fair share. Even as a user, this is something I want to do. We are using their material in order to generate income, so they should be getting their fair share. The only question is, what is a fair share? And also, at radio stations levels, you might find, if you look at the whole Europe, maybe radio stations who would love to cheat on music royalties. But it's the same with labels and even artists. Like, not everybody is very honest, is equally honest. So that's why if the composers, if the performance organizations, composers organizations, collective agencies knock on our door and let's say, well, you need to prove to us that this is really your income. So we do require, we demand, we insist on a statement from an accountant, which we will happily provide them. On the other hand, like, it's for us very important to know, like, is all the music is it really composed or performed? Because that's what we're paying for. Music that was not composed and that was not performed, by law, we don't need to pay for that.
Fair.
Yeah.
One of the most important topics right now in the industry, in my opinion. It was a tough challenge. And I want to thank you for sharing this episode with us.
Thank you so much.
And I'm actually happy with what we got out of this conversation.
You've got an idea.
We've got more than an idea. We've got the first prototype that we can take from here.
Yeah.
And I'm specifically proud of how we managed to strap it down to a very particular challenge that we can solve and really think ourselves into this whole value creation process and find a point where it makes most sense to implement such a solution. And yeah, it's
Do call me when the product is ready.
You
We will.
us to the radio.
Yeah.
we will. All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so that's it for this episode. You can check out our prototype through the link in the description. And of course, we'd like to know from you how you would have solved this challenge.